Anyone who has ever picked up a set of dice for D&D has likely heard of the legends of the Deck of Many Things, but it might shock you to know that there are other magic items available. Granted, some items are definitely not as potent, but just because they're not world-breakingly powerful doesn't mean they're not fun. So I went through a bunch of magic items and I picked out 5 that I think deserve a little bit more attention. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into 5 super cool magic items you've probably never heard of. First up on today's list, we have the Devotee's Censer. This is a magical flail that instead of having the little spiky bits, instead has perforated holes. I don't really know religion all that well, but when I was a kid and I went to church, they had these little things that I think was called the censer that they walked around with and smoke came out of it. I don't know if that's sacrilege, but according to this, it's literally a weapon. Inside the ball is lit incense that smokes and provides a few different benefits for the user. First off, your strikes are strengthened with the power of your faith. Essentially, your god helps you beat a bitch and deals an extra D8 damage. But that's not all. As a bonus action, you can cause the flail to create a cloud of incense smoke within a 10-foot radius of you. At the start of your turn, you and any creatures in that incense regain 1d4 hit points. And while 1d4 isn't necessarily a lot, it technically lasts for a minute, so standing in it for an entire duration is 10d4 healing. While it may not be super effective in combat, it is a great way to quickly regain hit points if you don't necessarily have time for a short rest. Just have a quick sit down and huff some of that good god kush.
Smoke weed every day.
Moving on to our second item for today's list, we have the Tentacle Rod. This bad boy has 3 tentacles, and while holding it as an action, you can have each of them make a single attack for a total of 3 attacks. Each of them has a +9 to hit and deals 1d6 bludgeoning damage. As far as damage is concerned, it's really nothing to write home about. Assuming that all 3 hit, that's still only 3d6 damage, which on average is only about 9 damage, but the damage isn't why it's on this list. If all 3 tentacles hit the same target, they need to make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or have a bunch of negative effects. Their speed is halved, they're given disadvantage on all dex saves, and they can't use reactions for an entire minute. Also, the creature can only take 1 action or 1 bonus action. One or the other. Not both. In terms of effectiveness, if a creature fails its save, it severely hinders their combat ability. At the end of their turn, they can remake their save to end the effect. All in all, this item can be a bit tricky as it needs a lot of things to go right in order to be the most effective it can be. You need to hit with all 3 attacks, and then the creature needs to fail a 15 Constitution saving throw, which isn't really difficult to make. But if they fail, you will almost certainly guarantee that they're gonna have a bad time. But hey, I mean, it's practically a whip, so maybe they'll like that. Anyways, moving on to number 3, we have the Staff of Frost. If you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you may already know how I feel about cold damage. Cold damage is pretty cool, but you know what else is pretty cool? Liking and subscribing. I mean, I've never been cool in my life, but I'm still glad I have the opportunity to help others. So make sure you take this amazing opportunity and become as cool as you can be today. Anyways, back to Staff of Frost. This bad Larry provides resistance to cold damage and holds 10 charges, of which you can use to cast 1 of 4 spells. The spells are Cone of Cold, Fog Cloud, Ice Storm, and Wall of Ice. For those unaware, those are levels 1, 4, 5, and 6 spells. That is a holy Toledo amount of crazy powerful spells packed into one itty bitty little staff. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the spells, but Cone of Cold is a 60-foot cone of 8d8 cold damage. That's pretty bananas, seeming as how you can technically cast 2 of them from this staff without having any adverse effects. That's pretty bananas if you ask me. Also, considering you have the utility of Fog Cloud and Wall of Ice, this is sure to be useful in any situation. But now we move on to the 4th item on our list, which is the Feather Token. This is a tiny token that can take one of 6 different forms: an anchor, a bird, a fan, a swan boat, a tree, or a whip. A token can only be used once and be one type, but depending upon the type of token, you can use an action to cause different effects, and you may be able to guess the effect based on the token. The anchor can be used on a boat or a ship. Simply touch it to the hull of the boat, and that boat ain't going anywhere for 24 hours no matter what. And now you probably see why I think you can guess what the effects are. The bird, however, summons a multicolored rock that follows your command for 24 hours. Unfortunately, the rock cannot attack, and it's purely for travel purposes, but it can travel 16 miles an hour up to 144 miles a day, at which point it will disappear. But since a rock is freaking massive, it can carry up to 1,000 pounds, which means you can carry heavy objects across large distances with ease. The fan creates a giant fan. Ooh, creative! That can be used to speed ships speed up by 5 miles an hour. Yep, moving on. The Swan boat summons a 50-foot-long self-propelled boat that can carry 32 medium-sized creatures. It doesn't say specifically that it summons a swan boat, but let's be real, any good DM is going to make it a giant swan boat. Imagine a force of 32 soldiers running off a giant pink swan boat. It's not about winning, it's about sending a message. A big, pink, swan boat message. Anyways, the tree summons a tree. And that's pretty much it. But finally, the whip summons a magical floating whip. You can use your bonus action to command the whip to attack, similar to that of a dancing sword. Now, the feather token, as you can see, has a wide range of uses, some of which are more helpful than others. But you can't tell me that it wouldn't at least be fun to fly on the back of a rock, or prank some poor ship captain who doesn't know why they're not moving. So, whenever you get a feather token, be sure to at least, figure out what it is before you use it. And now for our fifth and final item on the list, we have something special, and that would be the Scissors of the Scissors of Shadow Snipping. You can use your action to detach a shadow from a humanoid creature. This creates a new creature called a detached shadow, and you can control it to go wherever you want as long as you can see it. Just, for a second, imagine the kind of pranks you can do with a controlled shadow. There's a lot you can mess around with. But the really fun part about this item is that you can choose to relinquish control over the shadow and making it entirely autonomous, acting in the DM's discretion. The new creature uses the shadow stat block, only instead of being an undead, it's a fey creature, and it has some effect on the strength drain ability. If you give the shadow sentience, instead of having an aggressive and deadly shadow, you have more of a mischievous shadow, and depending on how the DM plays it, they might just want to prank people like something out of Peter Pan. So as far as effectiveness goes, I'm not really sure what this item is meant to do, but it sure as hell sounds fun to use, and isn't that what magic items are for all along? But anyways, that concludes 5 magic items you've probably never heard of. If you have any items you think don't get enough credit, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I read every comment, reply to nearly all of them, and who knows, I might even feature your item in the next video. Also, couple of things, I just opened up a Patreon and a Discord server, so if you want to check those out, I put the links in the description box below for you to check out as well. At this point, the Discord's still pretty basic, but we had a couple people ask, so we wanted to make one available for you all. Patreon has some really cool rewards for supporting us, like access to all of the homebrew featured on a livestream campaign, and even the ability to create your own NPC in the game. So if you decide to check those out, thank you very much, I appreciate it, but that's all I have for today's video. So thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on Friday.